glory days at the Who's got it better than us to brick by brick? It's always the 49ers way from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
Oh my
It's
goodness
49ers
gracious.
Cutback Podcast time. What is up, everyone? Sorry it took us a little bit to get on here today. We had a little bit of a technical issue, but we're ready to roll now. And apparently we're the only ones ready to roll because Jimmy Garoppolo is not ready to roll out of San Francisco.
You're not wrong there, and it doesn't look like it. It does not look like Jimmy Garoppolo is ready to roll or is going to be going anywhere pretty much anytime soon. This is a little, I guess the right word is disheartening. I'm not 100% sure how to make what to make of this at the moment. This is just not shocking development, but an interesting development nonetheless. It appears that there's no other places. There's no other potential avenues for Jimmy Garoppolo to land.
Yeah, and let's throw this wrinkle into it. Okay, I was on the earlier looking around, and I find a report that Jason LaConfora says don't count out the 49ers as a possibility for Baker Mayfield.
Eh?
Yeah.
How?
I don't know, but apparently, according to Adam Schefter, somebody called the Cleveland Browns and said, you give us a draft pick and we'll take on Baker Mayfield's salary.
No way, dude. There's no way.
I'm not kidding.
I don't. What's more likely, Ant? That right there, what you just said, or the rumors that John Lynch had 2-2s on the table for Jimmy Garoppolo?
It definitely doesn't appear he had 2-2s. And if he did have 2-2s and didn't take that compensation for Jimmy Garoppolo, what a mistake that was. I don't know if that's true. I always thought that was a little far-fetched because I think he would have jumped at that opportunity to get 2 second-round picks. But Alex, now all the questions come. You see Gerardo Sanchez saying at this moment, 5 McDonald's Happy Meals would be good for Jimmy G. Look like 1 chair for Mayfield and Jimmy G.
You're not wrong there. I mean, definitely does feel that way. Definitely does feel like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm speechless at this point. I don't understand how we got to this point. I don't understand how things spiraled so drastically out of control the way that they did. The Niners went from a situation where we all felt that they were in a good spot and there were plenty of options to all of a sudden, it feels like there's no options. There's no landing spots. Carolina seems like it's the only team now, the only place that he could viably land. But is even that true? I mean, is that even a reality at this point? I don't know if it is.
I don't think that Carolina seems legitimate. They don't have that many draft picks this year. So it appeared to me that, right now the 49ers are just going to have Jimmy Garoppolo for the foreseeable future. It definitely seems like it's pushed out to the draft. This is only if they want to trade him. If they want to trade him, this is for sure pushed out to the draft and possibly training camp. So Jimmy Garoppolo and that money seems to be stuck to the 49ers unless they trade him. Unless they cut him. So here's the question. At what point do the 49ers just cut bait, or is the fact that they feel like Jimmy Garoppolo has so much value that they weren't willing to take less trade capital, thinking that Jimmy Garoppolo added more to their roster than what they were getting offered. So they just plan on keeping him because he still has enough value inside the locker room, or at least to the front office, that they'd rather have him on the roster than take a 5th or a 6th for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I mean, if they really had 2-2s on the table for Jimmy Garoppolo and didn't take it, if that's real, I don't think they're cutting Jimmy Garoppolo. I personally don't think they're going to. I think it shows they value him very highly. And it appears, Ant, that maybe if this is accurate, if this is not fake news, if this isn't just leaks to try and drum up interest, the Niners value him highly, which would mean the only reason they would move off of him is if they felt they were going to get more than what they felt his value was and what it was going to be. I know there's everyone saying, right, you have to move Jimmy Garoppolo, but I've also been in the category of thinking you have to move Jimmy Garoppolo. I've also been the guy thinking, how can Atlanta move off that contract? How can anyone take some of these other guys? How do they have the money to do it, and teams are still doing it regardless? How can you hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo? we may be finding out. I don't know if he gets cut. I know I don't think you're in the same boat as me. I think it's possible 50-50 at this point that Jimmy Garoppolo stays in San Francisco. I at least think he's going to be here through the draft. It's what it feels like now.
It's been a crazy thought. I mean, it really is, because I mean, even last night, I did not believe this was a possibility. I thought the 49ers, when push came to shove, would take a deal maybe that was less favorable to go ahead and move Jimmy Garoppolo, get some compensation, and then move on from that $25 million. But now we have this situation where we're sitting here and Jimmy Garoppolo is not moved. That $25 million is still on the books. In fact, 27, I believe, it's really close to $27 million. And you are a little bit hamstrung. You only have around $4 million to make, the moves that you need to make. Plus, $4 million is not enough to sign the draft picks you currently have. So at what point now are the 49ers just going to be kicking the can down the road, reworking deals with Ebukam, Mosley, possibly Trent Williams, extending Jimmy Ward, just so they can keep Jimmy Garoppolo and his $27 million on the book? And is that good for Trey Lance? Because now you can't build a roster around Trey Lance that was going to put him in the best situation to be successful. If the 49ers would have come out from the beginning and said they planned on keeping Jimmy Garoppolo and having a competition with Trey Lance, everyone would understand it a little bit more. But you got good buys coming from Jimmy Garoppolo, like, oh yeah, Jimmy's going to be gone. It appeared Jimmy was going to be gone. Then you got John Lynch talking about, possible moves for him. I just think that right now it seems like everyone doesn't understand why Jimmy hasn't been gone. And now what kind of conversation are we going to get from it? Is that what John Lynch is going to say now, Alex? Is John Lynch now going to look at the fans when they have to talk to the media and say, we have two really good quarterbacks that we feel good about, and we didn't get enough value for Jimmy Garoppolo? Because let's be honest, the Colts got a lot of value for Carson Wentz and then turned around and gave up practically nothing for Matt Ryan in a third-round pick, which they had just got, and then only paid him $24 million, which is less than Jimmy Garoppolo. For them, it's a bang-up deal. To me, it just seems like right now the 49ers are on the outside looking in on the possible good decisions. So I'm wondering how this one's going to play out.
I'm wondering as well. I think a lot of the cutback crew is. I saw Mark said, could the Niners hold on to Jimmy and hope someone gets hurt during training camp from another team? You could do that.
Yeah. But
again, the reality is, right, is that that's a hope. It's a prayer. It's wanting something else to happen to open the market back up, because right now it doesn't feel like the market is open, that there's anything available. Hey guys, I'm just checking in from Jimmy G's Burner. Nice to see you again, my guy. But you may be around San Francisco for a little while longer. I think the thing that's the hardest for the fans right now is it felt like there was Jimmy's right. His going away thing felt like, they were moving on. His going away interview, the Niners saying that they were going to be looking at all different options and all different avenues, actively shopping Jimmy Garoppolo. All of that pointed to the direction of going towards Trey Lance. And it seems like the San Francisco 49ers have put this value on Jimmy that they're not willing to move off of, right? If it wasn't going to be, if 2-2s is true, then they wanted better than 2-2s. And if you weren't going to get better than 2-2s, then there's no reason to move off of him. That seems crazy to me, because 2-2s is a huge win for San Francisco. 2-2s is a huge win. You paid a second round pick for this gentleman. So if you get a second round pick, if you get that second round pick back and another one, you win in that scenario. Is there any way, Ant, that they aren't 100% confident that Trey Lance is going to be ready by next year, and that's why they're not doing this? They're sitting there right now going, we don't know if he's going to be ready, so unless someone's willing to overpay for Jimmy Garoppolo, we're not doing this?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think if that was the case, they would have been open the entire time with Jimmy Garoppolo, could be coming back to the 49ers, because they'd want to keep the locker room together, as far as, they wouldn't want the players to have to go out there and say, all the things that they have to say about Trey Lance and almost the goodbyes to Jimmy Garoppolo. They would be like, we're going to let this thing play out in training camp and the best player is going to play. I think that's how they would have approached it. That's not how they approached it. That might be how they end up, positioning this thing to make it sound like that's what they were doing. But I don't think that was the initial plan. I think their initial plan was to move Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't think they actually got an offer for 2-2s, unless Matt Rule in Carolina all of a sudden comes through with something crazy. I just don't think they have the draft capital to get it done. And you've seen Atlanta. Atlanta definitely said, okay, we're going Mariota, and then we're gonna wait. I mean, they're definitely gonna wait. New Orleans went Jameis Winston, which I think is the obvious choice for them. So right now, it seems like, once again, the NFC is wide open. The 49ers have an opportunity, and we're sitting there once again with the same situation at quarterback, except we have a better Trey Lance. This is interesting. I think for a lot of people, they're ready to move on from Jimmy. And I think for others, they're kind of excited. Like there are people right now that are like, oh, Jimmy's going to be on the team. People want Jimmy, but I wonder if Jimmy wants to be on this team, dealing with what he dealt with last year. Can him and his agent really think that this is the best situation? And then I saw Akash saying that maybe the 49ers could go to Jimmy G about restructuring his deal. Why in the world would Jimmy G restructure his deal to come back to the 49ers and be a backup? I guess he would make more money. I don't know what he would get on the open market. You would think Carolina would be willing to give him money on the open market. Maybe not $25 million, but more than what a restructured contract for the 49ers could look like.
Maybe, dude. I don't know what to make any of this at this point in time. I don't understand what's going on. I saw Stovey just said someone just retweeted a tweet saying Lance wants a trade. No, that's not happening. That's not.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's out there. I didn't know.
I think people are obviously just gonna. I mean, listen, everyone's gonna start saying everything under the sun now. Trey deserves better. Free Trey Lance. Just cut Jimmy. Everything's on the table right now for the 49ers, except for dealing Trey Lance. Keep in mind, that's not happening. Trey Lance is not going anywhere. Trey Lance can want out of San Francisco all he wants. They're not getting rid of him right now because no one's going to necessarily pay the price you paid to get him in to San Francisco. I think right now with the 49ers, Ant, too, is the possibility of restructuring is there for Jimmy Garoppolo, like you talked about, but does Jimmy want that? I was talking with Megan today. I went and did my lift in the afternoon, and we talked about this a little bit, and she's like, "Well, it just kind of makes sense. Why wouldn't he do that?" It's like, if your boss brought you in, to fix things up around your work and made an agreement with you to pay you a certain amount of money, and you did your job, right? You did your job, and you didn't really do anything bad. You took your business to places that hadn't been in quite a amount of time, and then 1 year you get sick for a chunk of the year. You still get your job done for the most part when you're out there, and you work through the illness and all that other stuff. But if your boss is like, hey, you know what, we can't afford that. We can't afford to have you not here, so we got to bring in someone who's younger and not going to take as much money that we hope can do what you did. I was like, would you feel a little slighted by that? Would you want to come back to that situation if the time came to part ways? I don't know if you'd want to. And what you're definitely not going to do is come back and go, I'm going to come back and take a pay cut for you as well. I'm going to take less money to make you happy after you did whatever you did for said organization or place. I don't believe Jimmy wants. I don't think Jimmy's sitting there going, yeah, let me take less money, guaranteed. Let me rework this contract to make it more beneficial for you because you don't want me.
No, and I don't think I don't think Trey Lance would ever request a trade. I just don't think that's in his character. Not at this point in his career. I think he's going to come in and compete. I think he believes he can start over Jimmy Garoppolo. So if it came down to it and Jimmy was still here in training camp, I feel sorry for Trey Lance because this is going to be looking over his shoulder the entire time from part of the fan base. And then just, him knowing that Jimmy's there. I do believe that Trey Lance is going to ascend enough that this would be a real training camp battle. You would think that with Trey Lance's skills, as long as he's developed the way that he's supposed to develop during the offseason, he would start over Jimmy Garoppolo anyways. But the fact that Jimmy would be there in the room, I think is a kind of maybe a negative for Trey Lance as far as competition goes. You just guaranteed the $2 million to Nate Sudfeld. So I just don't know. I think this is one of those things I didn't think was a possibility. Maybe that was naive on my part. There was people that were consistently putting out there that Jimmy Garoppolo could be on the 49ers in 2022. It didn't make any sense because Trey Lance should be ready and can take this team to new heights if he is ready. So carrying that $25 million shoot, I argued last year, would it be a better idea to let Jimmy go and use that $25 million to build a better roster around rookie Trey Lance? I definitely am not moving off that now in year two, that a sophomore Trey Lance with that money around him is actually a better situation for the 49ers. And I can't remember who it was. My apologies, I put it in chat, but over $9 million is what the 49ers could have, with their draft picks, the cost of. So I think it's one of those things where right now if they're keeping Jimmy Garoppolo, restructures and extensions are coming. I just don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is one of those, and he could surprise us. And if he does that, that's the ultimate team move. He will be even, more thought of in that locker room. But I do feel bad for Trey Lance that he's put in that situation where he's got an incumbent quarterback that's going to be looking over his shoulder the entire time. This is something when Tom Brady took over for Drew Bledsoe, Bledsoe was gone after that. You don't let them just sit there and roost and bring up those questions. The first time Trey Lance struggles, is there going to be a call from some of the fan base for Jimmy Garoppolo? I think there would have been. We just don't need that for Trey right now as he tries to develop.
Ideally, no. Dude, I'm so torn on this. This is like an emotional roller coaster right now. It really, truly is. And I feel you, Cutback crew, and everyone in the chat, and everyone on Twitter, and it just everywhere, right? I feel for you. This is something that's tough for me because I've had to come around to this idea of Jimmy being dealt, right? I mean, you know how I was. My initial thought process was, ideally, I would like to have Trey Lance have 2 years. The thought process, though, was that Jimmy was only going to be here for one of them, and maybe it was going to be a different guy bridging you to that next opportunity. Or if Jimmy Garoppolo won you a Super Bowl, then you can have a conversation about Jimmy Garoppolo bridging you somewhere else. The problem is going to be what is his value going to be if you win a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback? Now we're in a position where it feels like the Niners want to move on from Jimmy. Feels like Jimmy wants to move on from San Francisco. I think the fan base definitely does, and you can't. There's no suitors. There's no possibility. You put the value too high. You valued his character and the things he adds to your locker room and the leadership and how he runs your system. Coaches around the league may be looking at Kyle Shanahan. I mean, if this is truly how the rest of the league feels about Jimmy, Ant, that there's no way we would pay 2-2s. There's no way he's worth that much, right? There's no way we can do this. We can't make that move. The move just doesn't make sense for us. If teams truly do feel that way about Jimmy Garoppolo, then what does this say about Kyle Shanahan? Kyle, everyone who said Kyle Shanahan is not a genius, if Kyle Shanahan was able to get this guy to help get this team to an NFC championship twice and a Super Bowl, and no other team and coaches feel they can take what Kyle Shanahan did and replicate said thing, Kyle Shanahan is phenomenal then in the catch. But we gotta do something, because now you're in a horrible situation because no one else feels they can do what Kyle Shanahan has done with Jimmy, which means no one is going to pay what you want. And it looks like the Niners aren't going to budge off this. I mean, if this is the blunder, right? This is a blunder then in that case.
Shane Arizona 49ers Empire I saw someone put out there Baker Mayfield to the 49ers. That is actually the case. Jason LaConfora has put out there that watch the 49ers in the Baker Mayfield talk. I think if Baker Mayfield was coming in, you would think you would have to be the backup behind Trey Lance. This was something I never thought was going to get talked about. The fact that there's this much talk about the 49ers quarterback situation still, I thought we were going to get past this before March 16th. We're not, because Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the roster. This is one of those things where it's craziness. It really is. I think that we want resolution to this situation. I've seen the tweets going out now, remembering that, Jed York said last year when they made the move for Trey Lance and they had decided to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, that it was possible for Jimmy Garoppolo to play out his contract in San Francisco and be on the team through 2022. And we all thought that was just, something he was saying. But now it appears that is a legitimate possibility. And you've got half the fan base saying, just cut him, just get rid of him. You got the other half, saying we want resolution, with some of them saying they want him on the team. So I think this is just one of those things. I never thought it was going to come to that. And I wonder what the real feeling is amongst that front office. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, if they're sitting there and they were offered picks and they were just looking at each other like, no, we're not taking that. Jimmy's worth more than that to us on this roster. I'd rather have him than give up that. Or if they've been like, thinking they were going to get more, and then every single time something happens, they get the rug pulled out from under them, where Deshaun Watson gets traded, decides to go to Cleveland, or Matt Ryan, goes to the Colts. Is that the case? Have they really just had that happen to them? Or have they been sitting there the whole time going, no, we're going to get Jimmy's worth, or he's going to be on this roster next year?
Could be. And Juanito, he's been budgeted for. Yes, Lynch said that, and nobody bought that. It felt like posturing at the time. And it still may be posturing. It also could just be the reality. That is something to keep in mind. And Robert just said the injury history means he can never be a long-term starter with large commitment. All other teams seen how messed up the 49ers seasons over the years are. I mean, messed up. 2020 is the worst of it, and 2020 is also an outlier. is you had a number of people down with injuries all across the board for the San Francisco 49ers. Robert, let's also not forget that a guy who was just signed to a team has an extensive injury history. Marcus Mariota is looking like he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, and he's been nothing but injured since Tennessee. He's been healthy with the Raiders, but he hasn't been playing. Mariota's been dealing with hand numbness, shoulder issues, and all sorts. Nobody actually knows what that is. That is a huge risk the Atlanta Falcons are taking. Huge. My goodness.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's things that need to be, moves that need to be made still for the 49ers. And right now they just don't have the salary cap to do it because Jimmy Garoppolo is on the docket. So what are they going to do now? Are they going to go ahead and make moves anyway? Are they going to go ahead and start restructuring some of these deals? If they do, it's going to point to this and signal that, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on this team. My problem is I can't find a legitimate landing spot for him to land at this point, because Carolina doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense unless they're going to trade players. I mean, they don't have the draft picks. So could the 49ers work out a deal where it's, player for player? Also, there's all the talk of them wanting to move off Sam Darnold. I don't really want to add Sam Darnold's $18 million to the 49ers payroll, because in fact, you're trying to get off that money to be able to use, some freedom there. We've seen Brad, continue to put out there, Brad Graham, the SF Niners, putting out there, of course, about Brian Burns. And I would love that. I would love for that to happen. So Alex, is that more of a possibility? Could we get Jimmy moving for pieces? And because now it looks like Carolina is the only move. Could that happen? Or, could we just shock everyone and deal with Seattle and send Jimmy Garoppolo to Seattle inside the division? I never thought it was likely, but could it happen still?
Yeah, 100% can happen. I think it's actually more plausible now than ever before. We've seen this in the past. Teams have done this. Teams have traded a quarterback, their own quarterback, to a team within the division. Eagles did it with Donovan McNabb to Washington. There's a handful of teams that actually have made this move. And you're getting to that point now, Ant, where it may be a possibility. Now, the other thing is Seattle is also going to be in play potentially for Baker Mayfield. So if they are looking at quarterbacks, you are still dealing with a situation where both Seattle and not Cleveland, but both Seattle and Carolina could be looking at Baker Mayfield as the option instead of Jimmy Garoppolo, which puts you in a really bad spot. I just saw Freak Stomp said, just shredding Trey's confidence. Absolutely disgusting job done by the team. Look, I don't know if this shreds Trey's confidence. Having Jimmy in the locker room doesn't shred Trey's confidence. Shredding Trey's confidence would be either putting him out there in a bad situation, or if Trey is ready and is competing with Jimmy Garoppolo, just sticking with Jimmy because it's Jimmy. Not dealing Jimmy Garoppolo by this point in time doesn't shred Trey's confidence. What, if anything, this should bolster Trey, right? This should add fuel to the fire. Oh, we haven't moved him yet? Oh, we may not be able to move him. Oh, he may be back. Well, let's just put this in the grave right now. Let's get everything on that checklist that I talked about with Kyle and Lynch done. Let's get it all checked off. That way, when we come into camp, there's no doubt, right? Let's just, hey, I'm QB1, and you guys can just cut Jimmy. Who cares? Who cares at that point?
I think that number one, I'm not going to speak to Trey Lance's, mindset about how he feels about Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel bad for him that Jimmy Garoppolo would be in that room just for the mere fact that it could cause pressure. What I will say, though, is when it comes to that situation, are they going to have an open competition in camp at that point if Jimmy Garoppolo is on the roster? And if they're going to have an open competition in camp, then that means that reps are going to be taken away from Trey Lance. And we know he needs those reps as he's trying to ascend to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers. Those were reps I think we all just felt he was going to get now with Jimmy Garoppolo being, moved, because last year he didn't get those reps because it was obvious that they felt Jimmy Garoppolo was the best option for them in 2021. So I think that starts bringing into that question. We know Jimmy Garoppolo wouldn't be ready until training camp. So all OTAs, mini camps, everything would be ran by Trey Lance. But to me, this is one of those things where, are the 49ers gambling? Are they gambling with taking a chance that possibly a quarterback does get injured and then they're ready to move him? And is that gamble going to pay off? Because when they do ultimately move him, if they do, will they be able to get any players that they wanted to get in free agency? And maybe they don't want any other players in free agency besides maybe some low budget options that they're working with that they can currently sign with restructures and extensions. That I don't know, because I don't know what they're thinking in the locker room. But to me, it's one of those things where it seemed like it made the most sense for Jimmy Garoppolo to be gone, for Trey Lance to ascend, get all the reps that he's supposed to get. And now it's not appearing that that is the case, and it's kind of puzzling a little bit. So I would like to know where the front office is coming from, but I don't think we're going to get anything from them, because what we got today when everything came down was a Hassan Ridgeway announcement that he was officially signed to the 49ers. And people were like, you guys are not getting away with this.
I mean, they don't want him to get away with it, but they're going to. They are going to. The reality right now is that with the San Francisco 49ers and this entire situation, they have a value on Jimmy. And they have a value in terms of what they believe he adds to the room, what he does for this team, how he leads this offense, the confidence he instills in the guys around him. And they think that is worth something. That is worth something. The problem is that other teams don't necessarily get to see that impact, right? They hear it talked about, and they've seen the success Niners have had in 2 of the 3 years that he's been available for the football team, but they don't necessarily believe that is maybe the difference for their team. It's something else. And so I hear people saying this is vindicated. This means Jimmy Garoppolo had no trade value ever. He never had it. Not once, not for an iota of a second. And I don't believe it's that. I believe the San Francisco 49ers are treating the Jimmy Garoppolo trade just like they do free agents and guys that they target. They have set a value. They have set a number. And it's either going to get met or it's either going to get met or it's not. And if it's not met what their expectations are, they aren't going to budge. They are stubborn, and they are a girlfriend who is right about something and a boyfriend who is wrong about something, and the boyfriend doesn't want to admit to it, or vice versa. You don't want to be wrong in this situation. You don't want to admit that maybe it's a little bit higher than it should, and you're just digging your feet in right now and just being like, we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I don't think I'm wrong. I think everybody else is, and they're doubling down on it. This is either going to blow up in their face or pay off in some way, shape, or form. The problem is that I don't know how it pays off. I don't see how it can at this point. It doesn't. There's no path to it.
Yeah, right now you don't. Right now the avenue isn't apparent. I mean, before you had an avenue. You had the Colts sitting there. They seem to be just in a nice standstill, a stare down, waiting for compensation. The problem is, as you're doing that and as you're staring down, other things are happening along the way. Matt Ryan, seemingly did become available. Baker Mayfield become available, and all of a sudden there's different pieces that are involved that change those negotiations and the parameters of those negotiations. So that steadfastness that you're talking about by the 49ers then gets called into question each time, because sometimes there is a better option. And what happened was a better option presented itself for the Colts. Matt Ryan, for the same amount of money for a 3rd round draft pick, if the 49ers were seeking 2 2s, seems to me like a way better deal, because Matt Ryan has been an MVP in this league. So I think that is part of the value. And then we had someone come in, and I was going to read it. Let me see if I can find it. Ken Morton said he might be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC now when healthy. The guy is more than capable of leading the team back to the playoffs. I wonder if he'd take a pay cut. I think that's what a lot of people are wondering right now. They're wondering if Jimmy Garoppolo is willing to take a pay cut. If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo and I'm his agent, Mr. Yee, I'm saying no. I ain't taking no pay cut. 49ers, you guys are going to pay me the $27 million you owe me, or you're gonna release me. Now that could be the point, right? If he feels like there's not a place where he can land, where he can get even the value he would get from a restructured contract, then he might look at it and think to himself, okay, well, this is where I'm going to maximize my potential by getting the money. Here is the problem, though, is if he does that, he relegates himself to being a backup quarterback behind Trey Lance. And then at what point, when he gets onto the open market, does he feel like he's going to get a starting quarterback value again? You see Mariota and Jameis Winston, who have been backups now, getting 1-year deals. Is that what Jimmy Garoppolo gets relegated to? I don't think he's ready for his brand to become backup quarterback stigma. I think he's ready to still be, thought of as one of the better quarterbacks and a starting quarterback in the league.
Mr. Corey says Houston and Carolina are all that's left. To suggest Seattle, when Pete Carroll has seen that scrub up close twice for 5 years, is a joke. It isn't, though. Who do you have? You have Drew Lock. Jimmy Garoppolo's not better than Drew Lock, Mr. Corey? Is that what we're saying? Do you honestly believe that?
He's younger.
That'll make better or better fit.
No, but I mean, if you're Seattle and you're rebuilding, you might not be looking for a veteran quarterback. You're looking for a young guy to see what you can get, and then possibly drafting someone this year or next year. So Drew Lock is, a younger bridge quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. You don't know. Seattle might not be about winning a lot of football games this year. Cutting Carlos Dunlap, not signing Trent Brown, cutting Kerry Hyder. It doesn't seem like they're going all in on building this roster to win this year. They are, in fact, I think, waiting for 2023.
I would agree with you that they are waiting for 2023. In all honesty, maybe full tank mode for 2023, just because of the potential quarterbacks that could be available in that draft, and maybe some guys they feel could, immediately catapult them back into, contention in the NFC, especially now a weakened NFC. One quarterback and the right guy in that draft in 2023 could put you from bottom of the barrel back into playoff contention and competing in the NFC West. They definitely feel that way. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what the plan is for free agency. I don't know what the plan is for this roster. I don't know what the plan is for this draft. I have no clue anymore what the 49ers intend to do or how they want to go about doing this, because it felt like Jimmy G and trading him was your best way forward in terms of building out this roster for not just the present, but the future as well. And the Niners aren't doing it. And there is no bone. I see people in the cutback crew and chat. I see people on Twitter. I see the retweets. I see all of it talking about, well, you just got to cut him now at this point. Just cut him. There's no part of me that believes San Francisco is going to just cut him and move off of this. There's no part of me that believes they're going to do it. I don't see it. I think they value him. I think they value what he brings to the locker room. And I think they feel cutting him may, I don't want to say like lose people or piss people off in the locker room, but it may show I don't know, do something to their credibility. I don't know. Is it an ego thing at this point? Is it a confidence thing? I don't know. Do they believe this could actually impact their locker room if they were to just cut Jimmy and move off of this?
I mean, I don't think you can worry about ego at this point. It's not about ego. It's about making sure you put forth the best roster. And what it is finding the value of Jimmy Garoppolo compared to whoever you were going to sign in free agency or the draft picks that you need to bring in. I think if you could do both, like if you had free agency and then you could keep him, you want to have a strong quarterback room. But I don't think that's ever the case. I think you need that money. We've seen some of these. Marvin Rose said, could they just be waiting for the start of the season? Wait for a quarterback to get hurt and then trade him. Here's the thing, though. I mean, now you're going into the season with the $27 million cap hit. How can you go into the season with $27 million as a backup quarterback? I think that's maybe the most expensive backup quarterback in a long time. I just don't think you can do that. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think it's one of those situations where right now you're like, oh, well, just cut him. But I do think cutting him at some point is in the realm of possibilities if you can't work out financially, making up money other places, because they have to free up some money. So if they're going to be able to do it through extensions and restructures to be able to, free up that money, that makes sense now. But what does that mean for 2023, for 2024, 2025, as they continue to have voidable years and kick the can down the road? Is it going to get to the end of Trey Lance's rookie pay scale and they just don't have the money to be able to compete for a Super Bowl? And we know that's the goal, is to win a Super Bowl in the next 4 years. Is this one of those things that's going to be a problem for the 49ers now?
Yeah, does feel that way. Arden Key is visiting with the Lions right now. Yes, he is visiting with the Lions at the moment. This whole Jimmy thing is a snowball headed for hell, says Bomber T. So it feels like, man, it feels like the apocalypse is upon us. And like, this is literally, I mean, the title, right? This is the hand that no 49ers fan wanted to be dealt. By the way, all of the quarterback carousel, it's all pretty much cleared up at this point, but the San Francisco 49ers still have Jimmy Garoppolo. The quarterback controversy still remains. Will Jimmy still be in San Francisco? Are the Niners actually planning to run it back with Jimmy Garoppolo? Are they planning to do something with him and keep him as the backup quarterback? Like, all of this just doesn't make sense. I can't wrap my head around it. Because there's no part of me after they drafted Trey Lance that thought at any point in time we would see a scenario in which Trey starts and Jimmy is the backup quarterback, barring it being last year and Trey winning the job in camp. That was the only way that it was a possibility. I don't know how it could be a possibility next year with Jimmy Steen being on the roster. If Trey were to beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, the Niners, you just ideally just cut your losses, right? Just cut him, free up the money, and you could go make a trade if you needed to and go get some pieces in other ways. I don't know, man. I never in a 1,000 years saw this was coming. And I know some people are saying, oh, the Niners decided to D-tackle Hassan Ridgeway. We've already talked about that. We already broke it. That was already been reported. It's just official now.
Yeah, I think some people, maybe didn't know though. So yeah, Hassan Ridgeway officially became a signed with the 49ers today. He had agreed to terms, during the start of the free agency period, defensive tackle from the Eagles. He's going to be a nice rotational piece behind Javon Kinlaw as they look to get depth behind Kinlaw after DJ Jones, went to Denver on that big money deal. So if you're seeing that come through today, the 49ers, shockingly posted that shortly after Matt Ryan is traded to Indianapolis. But don't worry, 49ers Twitter was not going to let them get away with that. And every single comment on there about Hassan Ridgeway was not about Hassan Ridgeway. In fact, it was about Jimmy Garoppolo and the lack of a trade. So I think that this is something that happened. But yeah, I mean, we're going to see. Juanito is steadfast on his belief that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starting quarterback in 2022, Alex.
Juanito, at the beginning of last season, I believe the Niners were winning a Super Bowl, and so I was on that boat with you. And then the way the season played out, it was just kind of obvious that. Well, hold on, I say obvious, Ant, but obvious to me anyway, in my mind's eye, that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't the option for this team. I like the idea of a 2-year development plan for Trey Lance. I've always said that. But the problem is that we saw some development from Trey. We saw the limitations with Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw the NFC Championship game and, him playing through an injury and missing a lot of open wide receivers in said game. And it just felt like, all right, the time has come. It's time to move on. You're not going to sell the fan base on this idea. Not the entire fan base. There is no way a majority of the fan base is going to roll with this and be okay with this, which is just going to mean toxicity and problems within the fan base and at home games. You're talking about a situation where Jimmy Garoppolo could come out, Ant, to a chorus of boos, even if the team is winning football games, regardless of how he's playing, if that happens.
No, it's not if. It will happen. I mean, I honestly believe that the people on Twitter that say they will go and picket, the 49ers front office, I think they will. They are very passionate about this situation. 49er fans are either, we've heard the talk since last year. There's Jimmy stands, there's Trey stands. That was a real thing. And I think what we're doing is we're seeing this kind of all unfold. And I think everyone was expecting, even people that are pro Jimmy all the way, we're expecting some sort of resolution, right? An announcement that Jimmy Garoppolo was coming back, or a trade was going to happen, or something was imminent. And that's just not coming from the 49ers. It is crazy that we're in this boat. I did not expect us to be talking about this right now. I figured right around before or a little after March 16th, we would have resolution on this. Jimmy Garoppolo would be moved. We would know what the compensation was, whether it was, the picks that they ultimately wanted to get, or if they had to blink and take a lesser deal. I just felt that they were going to do it, and they did not. I mean, so this is one of those things I think is perplexing for a lot of people, and that's why you're getting some of the, just like Bomber T says, fire Lynch. You are getting some fire John Lynch, comments and stuff. We got that last year with Kyle Shanahan. I'm still waiting to see what they do, but I'm definitely one of those ones that's like, okay, they need to say something to make this make sense.
I need help here. I just need help. I need to try and understand what the thought process is. I don't get it. I don't understand the thought process. And Nerman just said, is the holdup more of an indictment on Trey's development or confidence in Jimmy G's experience in our scheme? I'm confused with the front office. Everyone is confused with the front office, Nerman. You are not the only one. Bomber, we get it. Promote Peters, fire Lynch. I understand, my guy. But Nerman, I don't think there's any way to know that, I don't think this signals anything with Trey Lance, because there's no way to know what he's doing, where he's at, how he's developing, how he's coming along. It's way too early in the process, way too early to be making some sort of determination one way or the other in terms of he's developed, he's not developed, he's not getting better with the work he's been doing since the season ended around that March timeframe and February timeframe. There's no way. There's no way to actually know any of these things. So it's too early. It's too early for that to be the case or that to play a factor in this. I think the reality is the Niners just wanted. They wanted, with it, deep down, they wanted someone to value Jimmy Garoppolo the same way they did and to pay accordingly to how they valued him. No one did. No one was willing. No one saw it the same as San Francisco. And rather than, like you said, Ant, blinking and realizing, all right, we're probably not going to get as much as we want, but if we come down a little bit, we're still going to get something. And hey, that's okay. Something is better than nothing in this situation. if they had been in that boat, done that, this drama wouldn't be here. But it almost appears like the Niners value Jimmy Garoppolo more than potentially the free agents that were available, because they didn't want to do that. And they didn't even try and restructure more than just Eric Armstead or George Kittle. They restructured 3 guys, and we're like, all right, we're good. We're just gonna sit here now. We're gonna sit here and twiddle our thumbs, and the rest of us are going, but there's names, there's people, there's options, there's so many ways to improve this roster. It's just frustrating. And yes, the front office, someone needs to say something. Someone needs to make 49ers fans give us something to grasp and understand about this, because as of right now, there is no amount of mental gymnastics that I can do and that most fans can do to fully understand how we got here, why we're in this position, why this hand, and why now.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of takes in the chat. We got some on one side that say if they keep Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm out of here. I'm becoming another fan of another team. You got ones that say if they don't keep Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm going to become a Dolphins fan. I'm going to become a fan of another team. This is the time when I'm like, you know what I wish? I wish we had Twitter. I wish we had YouTube. Back in 1987, 1988, 89, 90, when Steve Young and Joe Montana were going through the things that they were going to, and the fan base was completely split. That's how it feels. The only difference is, both of those guys end up being Hall of Fame quarterbacks. We know Jimmy Garoppolo is not a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he is beloved to some in the fan base for what he's done for this football team. I think everyone in 2017 was super excited about Jimmy Garoppolo's possibilities. And then 2019, we were rolling with Jimmy. And I think that there is a lot of the fan base that are latched onto him. So these views are, it's one of those things where it's not over the top. I just think it's how people see it. It's how they believe. I would never switch my fandom because of a player coming or going. When Joe Montana left and went to Kansas City, I didn't become a Kansas City fan. Some of my family became Kansas City fans, but I stuck it out with the 49ers because, when it comes down to it, that's just what I was about. But I was a Joe Montana guy. I appreciate Steve Young and I like what Steve Young did, but I think this is something that's crazy. And it's one of those things that 49er fans are really passionate about. And that passion has people questioning this front office consistently. And we don't know the inner workings, Alex, of what's going on in the front office. I wish we did. I wish we were flies on the wall that could hear exactly John Lynch and Kyle Shannon's, conversations, what they were saying. And Kenneth Harris is all about the clown emojis, by the way. But just, consistently being about, what is going on. And I wish one of these front offices would tell us what John Lynch is telling them, about the trade talks. Because the inner workings, just to me, it's so compelling because we just don't know what's going on right now. And it seems like every time you thought they were in on someone, they just weren't.
No, they weren't in on anyone that we thought they could be in on. They're still not in on a lot of people that we thought they could be in on and would eventually be on. There's still tons of names that you and I both believe that would make this team better and fit in the scheme and the system. And you can't go get most of them or any of them for that case. Now, I'll give the Niners some credit. They've done some very interesting things with the salary cap and have pushed more dead money down the road for, 2023, 24, 25, and 26 with some of these contracts that they signed so that it doesn't eat up that much salary cap space right now. That's nice, but you still don't have that much salary cap space. So you're not going to be able to go get these names or build out a 90-man roster. And, the picks you have in the draft aren't going to fill out your 90-man roster. So you have to start doing something at some point, right? You have to start bringing guys in at some point in time. And the longer you wait to restructure these contracts or move off of Jimmy or decide to cut Jimmy and cut your losses, the harder that's going to be and the less names are going to be available.
Yeah, here we got a couple of things. EJ Hunter was saying, do you think what happens first, a trade or release? That's what he said, but I want to couple that with what Robert said. He said, even if he was cut early, I don't see them making a big splash in free agency. It's not really how they work. I think you're right, Robert. I don't think they would make a big splash at this point. I don't think they're going to make a big splash signing or anything like that. But I think it would free up the money to do the normal operations without having to kick the can down the road and extend or restructure players, which is something, that can do. Now, Alex Juanito says you can't even, he's saying, I can't even compare. Young actually had a track record of playing professionally, and Trey is coming from Division I football. You're right, but Steve Young also had a track record of failing as a professional quarterback. He was not great in Tampa Bay. He was not good in the USFL. He was good in the USFL, but he wasn't like over the moon where everyone wanted him. So there's a little bit difference there, but he's right. It's not the same situation. I'm just talking about the dynamics with the fan base, because the fan base had seen a little bit of Steve Young in the offense, and they'd seen Joe Montana, and they were kind of split on what needed to happen there.
Very true. And Bomber, I saw that question. It's a solid question. We're working on stuff, so we'll let you know if anything happens. Trust me, the Cutback crew will be the first things to know if we start doing anything like meetups or anything like that. We just got logistics with that kind of stuff to work out before we can do anything or try and announce anything like that. So just stick tuned to the channel, subscribe if you haven't already. It's the best way to kind of find out if we do anything or are going to be doing anything, because we'll definitely talk about it here. We definitely post that in the community section. But look, you're not wrong, and Cutback crew, people saying that it's not wrong either. The Niners may not be cutting Jimmy Garoppolo also right now for that exact reason, right? We don't want to go get the big names. We're going to do other way. We're going to bring in, smaller pieces or mid-level guys or guys that aren't going to eat significant amounts of money and go about this in a different way. So if you're doing that, you don't have to go out and cut Jimmy Garoppolo to free up that money. You can just extend some guys and restructure contracts and move money around in different ways to free up the money you need to make moves. The question is when you do that, because it feels like right now is the time in theory to start doing that. Most of your trade options for Jimmy are gone. So you're not freeing up the money by trading Jimmy Garoppolo, it would appear, unless, Carolina decides to, come in and wow San Francisco. Or if the San Francisco 49ers just decide, hey, I guess we're going to blink now and not demand what we were demanding, and we'll take whatever you can give us. But I don't see that happening at the moment. I think we're in this for the long haul. I think, I would imagine here in the next day or so, the Niners have to start restructuring and start signing some guys. Who are the names that are going to be restructured? We've talked about plenty of them in the past. Who are the guys that they would extend to free up that money? And then who are the names they're going to try and bring in? And guess what? At this point, no 49ers fan is going to care about anyone you sign. They're not, because the only thing that is on your mind now is what is happening at the quarterback position. Why is Jimmy Garoppolo still here? Can someone give us some answers? And I don't think we'll ever hear from the front office on this until an actual decision is made and they make a choice, right? Cutting Jimmy, they decide to trade Jimmy, or, God forbid for every 49ers fan, brace for impact. We have a quarterback battle going into OTAs and training camp next year.
Well, I don't think it'll be OTAs for the mere fact that Jimmy won't be healthy enough to participate in OTAs. So he won't even be required to be there for that. I think when it comes down to it, though, the draft, they're going to have to answer questions because they're going to be available to the media to answer questions. And then I seen that I think it was Chuck Seeger said, how mad would you guys be if Jimmy G gets cut and then signs with the Hawks? I think maybe that could be something they're taking into consideration. I'm sure they don't want to cut him and have him end up in the division. I'm not too upset about it. Like I don't want Jimmy Garoppolo to play for the Seahawks for the mere fact of, I don't want them to have an improvement at the quarterback position, but in the same regard, I would like to think they could get something back for him. So I'm still in the trade Jimmy Garoppolo mode. I'm not really thinking about him getting cut, even though I would love to have the $25 million. The problem is if you do cut him, and I know other people have brought this up in the chat, if you cut him, you have a $7.9 million hit, from the injury clause he has in his contract. So you would be taking on that hit until he signed with another football team. So at what point would he sign that? So there's a lot of moving pieces with Jimmy Garoppolo, not only just getting released, but also the possibility of him getting traded. I think the trade is the best situation still, but now there's no market for it. I mean, besides Seattle and Carolina, I just don't see a market. And with Carolina, they don't have the draft picks. So it's got to be players. And then are they willing to move off any of those players that they have, that they have on their roster, or any of those even enticing to the 49ers?
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is an interesting situation. Twisted Clown just said too, is the draft the next deadline? It would feel like it, but
is there a deadline at this point?
I don't know if there is. Like, honestly,
yeah,
I honestly don't believe that there is. I think you have two teams right now that are caught between a rock and a hard place in the quarterback position. It's Cleveland with the Baker Mayfield conundrum there and everything that's going on with Baker and them having to eventually move off of him in that contract and how much they're paying him. You would think anyway. And then the 49ers, sitting here with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance and, not having a suitor at the moment. I think everyone else kind of knows both these teams are caught between a rock and a hard place. And I think teams are sitting there going, if the Niners aren't willing to come down off the Jimmy Garoppolo number, we'll just wait for Cleveland to bleed themselves dry and go, all right, I guess we're just going to have to cut Baker and move on from this here and try and swoop him up and go that route. I think teams think they have the leverage here on Jimmy. And at this point, with how the Niners have played this, it feels like they have essentially outkicked their coverage. And you had leverage, you had opportunities and possibilities. You just had to not be, a little too greedy. And it looks like the Niners were a little too greedy.
It appears so. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what the reports are of how much they were actually offered, especially with Diana Rossini coming out and saying Indianapolis was fearful of Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder, and the fact that it's not that so much they didn't think he was going to heal, but they didn't really like that he wasn't going to be available for most of the off-season work. So that was something that they were taking into account. Now that comes out, you would think that the 2 twos did not come, or the apparent 2 twos. I'm going to say apparent in air quotes. Apparent 2 twos did not come from the Indianapolis Colts. So who is this team that was involved? Because New Orleans was so quick to jump and get Jameis Winston back, today. The Falcons were so quick to jump and get Marcus Mariota. The only teams that were available that could possibly offer 2 twos are what? Seattle and Carolina. And Carolina, I'm not even sure they have 2 twos to offer. So this is one of those things that's like, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'm wondering where this report came from. I mean, we know Pro Football Talk, said it, but who leaked it to them? And then, what's actually was the offers for Jimmy Garoppolo? I'm having a feeling that it wasn't anywhere near 2 twos. Maybe it was like Middlecoff said, and it was 1-2, and the 49ers were waiting for that kicker. And because of circumstance, the kicker never came.
Or the 2 twos were Seattle, right? That was the team that offered up the best amount. And the Niners are sitting there going, all right, sweet. We got a division rival who's willing to pay 2 twos. Hey, everybody, I had an offer on the table for 2 twos. If you want Jimmy, and teams were like, number one, either A, we don't believe you, or B, if you have 2 twos, take it. Because we're not going to pay more than that. You're not getting a 1. You're not getting 2 twos and something else. Like, just take it. And the Niners are now sitting there, holding the 2 twos going, well, this is the best offer we have, but it's to a division right. Do we really want to do that? Look, John, I think I'll speak for 50% of the fan base. Right now, there's 50% of the fan base right now going, if there are 2 twos on the table and it's Carolina or Seattle, you pick up the phone right now and you take that deal and we just move on. The question is if that truly was the case, why didn't the Niners take that? I mean, they would have to be sitting there going, we just won the trade, right? We won the trade. We paid a 2 and we're getting that pick back plus something else. There's no part of me that believes if there was really 2 twos on the table that they wouldn't have pulled the trigger on it. There would have been no other negotiations that needed to be done. There's no shopping around other teams. It's 2 twos, sign, print, cut the tape, moving on. We just got what we paid for Jimmy plus more back. And we're going to get, we're getting potentially two top 60 picks. 2 top 60 picks. Are you kidding me? How is that not a win in that scenario? Why wouldn't you pull the trigger on that?
Yeah, and I agree with Chuck Seeger. All I know is this offseason is crazy AF. He is not wrong. Everything that has happened, all the movement amongst the league, this is not a time that you normally think there's going to be an abundance of content to be able to talk about. But the 49ers and the chaos in the NFL in general has just been over the top. This has been the largest and biggest saga of moves in a free agency that I can remember in an offseason of trades. And I thought last year was kind of crazy with the Stafford, deal and all the things that happened there. But no, it's just getting going, and it makes me think that this is just going to continue. So yeah, this is one of those things where, I did not think we were going to see Jimmy Garoppolo still with San Francisco at this point. He's still here. And I just feel like now there is a real possibility that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be with this team through the draft. And it's kind of funny because, we've had John Chapman said it. He said, don't be surprised if Jimmy Garoppolo is not there on draft day. And I saw it and I was like, man, they're not really going to do that, are they? And then they did it. And now it's a possibility. And then now I'm starting to think, wait, Jimmy Garoppolo is really not going to be there at training camp, is he? That could be really interesting. I don't think in any world that, his people or him want that situation, but it might be the situation they're dealt, because when it comes down to it, the Niners do own his contract. And I mean, he can request a trade deal all he wants. I mean, they wanted to trade him. Maybe the value is just not there. The same value the Niners have just isn't there. I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around, Alex. I'm trying to wrap my head around the potential of Jimmy Garoppolo being on the 49ers in 2022, because I was completely, set that this was not happening. This was Trey's team. And I still think it's Trey's team. Let me make that clear. I still think this is Trey's team, but I do think now that, there's a distinct possibility Jimmy Garoppolo could be on this roster. And that's not something I ever thought I would say coming out of the 2021 season.
And if you had asked me yesterday on the live stream whose team this was, I would have said it's Trey Lance's team. I don't know if I believe it anymore, dude. I don't, because if 2 2s were on the table and you didn't take it, or you had anything close to a second round pick and something else, or even just a second round pick and you did not take it and you're the San Francisco 49ers, I have to start questioning how badly you wanted to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. I have to start questioning it. And if that's the case, if I'm questioning that and you really needed someone to overpay for you to be willing to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo, then I start to question whether or not you ever, maybe not ever wanted to move off of Jimmy. I think you would like to move off of Jimmy, but I have to question how badly, like how important it was to you to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. Yesterday, last night, I would have told you as we were streaming last night, less than 12 hours ago, hey, or a little less than 24 hours ago, hey, this is definitely Trey Lance's team. I had no doubt in my mind. I don't know if I believe it. I don't know. I mean, I believe that it probably should be Trey Lance's team at this point. Every decision you made and everything leading up to this point.
Wait. You're questioning whether it's Trey's team. You're going back to Jimmy Garoppolo?
I'm not going back to Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm saying I don't know if the Niners believe it's Trey Lance's team. I'm not speaking for me. I don't know. How could I know that? How could you know one way or the other at this point? Nothing about this makes sense. Nothing about this smells right. Nothing about this feels like the Niners wanted to, like they really, really, really wanted to move off of Jimmy. I think they only wanted to, at this point, it's pointing to, the way I'm viewing this, they only wanted to move off of Jimmy for the right price. So if the price wasn't met or wasn't getting close, then for them it was like, just hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo then. You guys don't want to pay us what we think he's worth? We'll just hold on to him and roll with him for another year. It feels like that's what they wanted. And if that's what they wanted, was it ever really Trey Lance's team?
Well, I mean, I see Bomber T saying, is the front office thinking Lance is a bust? No, they're not. They're not thinking Lance is a bust, because if they were thinking that, their Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, and Cleveland were in on Deshaun Watson, one of them would have been more than willing to go all in on Trey Lance and take that deal. And they could have probably given the 49ers a similar, probably even less to get Trey Lance. So the Niners weren't willing to move off of Trey Lance. That's number one. So I don't think that's a thing. What I think is crazy, though, is that now I just can't believe we're getting to the point now where we think the front office is actually bringing Jimmy Garoppolo back. I mean, this has been a foregone conclusion that Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be the starting quarterback. And now you're saying that you think the front office could potentially be saying Trey Lance isn't ready and that Jimmy Garoppolo could be the starting quarterback in 2022. And I just don't see any world where this is a possibility, where they're going into another season with the chaos that ensued, with the media, the stress that it put on this locker room, the stress that it put on this fan base and the front office, that they're going to try to roll this back. And I can't see Jimmy Garoppolo being okay with it either, where he's going to be like,
what choice does he have?
Go through all the same stuff. He has a choice in the mere fact where he can start pushing now for his release. He could say, I can't be in this situation. Get me out of here. He could start being vocal about the situation, Alex. You think he's really just going to sit back and be like, yeah, you know what? I'll go in there and compete with the kid.
Season, and he sat through all of last season.
That was different though, because there was gold at the end of the end of the rainbow. He could see a potential move somewhere else, and the whole goal was for him to stay a starting quarterback. That is what he's trying to do. In no case does he want to be the backup to Trey Lance and it appear that he got beaten out by somebody else. That's not good for his brand. That's not good for his ability to go out there and get another contract at age 31.
I agree with you, but it doesn't look like there's a market for him to get a big quarterback. I mean, someone would have made the deal. Like someone would have paid the price. They would have paid the piper. I don't think teams want to pay Jimmy Garoppolo big money now. That's what it appears. They don't want to pay him big money. They don't want to give up a lot of draft capital.
It's not even about big money, though. It's not even about big money. It's just about him being able to get a starting job where he gets serviceable starting money, because as soon as you become a backup, you start getting Marcus Mariota 2-year, $7 million deals. Jimmy Garoppolo is a competitor who wants to win football games. So I can't see him being like, yeah, you know what, I'll be the backup.
I don't see that either. I don't see him being a backup either, Ant, but I don't know. I don't know, man. Did you see the whole?
So then you see him starting then potentially, right? You think if he's on the roster in 2022 that there's a legitimate competition between Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo for the starting quarterback?
I think the Niners are going to make it a competition. Do I think that Jimmy Garoppolo runs away with said job? No. I would be more inclined to believe that Trey Lance, with a full offseason, another year of development, is going to, I mean, ideally be the guy. He would win the job.
Let me say this to you. Do you think it would be good for Trey Lance's development to have a competition in training camp with Trey Lance? I mean, yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. Do you think that's good for Trey Lance's development?
So there's two ways to look at it, right? Competition, healthy competition brings out the best in people. And also, Trey needs as many snaps as humanly possible to understand and help with said development, and having a quarterback competition takes away from it. Both have merit. Both have warrant. I would think it hurts more than it helps in this scenario, because it's not just competing against Jimmy Garoppolo and having snaps taken away from you. It's competing against a guy that the locker room loves. And if you beat him out, or if it's close and they decide to go with Trey, maybe a portion or a section of the locker room sitting there going, the only reason you're there right now, kid, is because of your potential upside, not because you necessarily, destroyed Jimmy Garoppolo. It doesn't feel like a good situation. It doesn't feel like it helps more than it hurts.
I think we do need to give this locker room more benefit of the doubt, more credit. They understand, because they're in the business of football, that if one player beats out another one, it's because they're the better football player. The way that Kyle Shanahan has breeded competition in the locker room, they know that. So the better player is going to play. I mean, he proved that. He didn't put the rookies out there.
I do agree with you on that.
So if Trey Lance was to win the job over Jimmy Garoppolo in training camp, if that came to that, I hope it doesn't, then the fact would be the locker room would accept it, because ultimately they trust Kyle to make the right decisions. And that's why the locker room is so tight, and so there's so much belief in him. But this is just craziness to me that we believe that now, and I know there are people that believe it, that Jimmy Garoppolo could actually be the starting quarterback in 2022. And if that did happen, I mean, that would say something about Trey Lance's development, because I do think him sitting 2 years is a long time for a quarterback with his potential. And I think it would go into the fact that at what point is this guy going to get the reps necessary that he needs to get to develop into the quarterback they want, because they have to win a Super Bowl on a rookie pay scale. They have to take advantage of that, because after that, your chances of winning a Super Bowl drop so drastically.
A compensation update, by the way, Ant, for both the Marcus Mariota deal and the Deshaun Watson deal. Marcus Mariota's contract is 2 years, $18.75 million. That's what the Falcons are paying. There's probably not a lot of guaranteed money in year one, I would imagine. And per Schefter, Cleveland gave up not just the 3 firsts and the fourth that we thought. It was a third and a fourth, right? It was third and 1/4, and the Texans were giving up a 6th round pick also, but also apparently an additional 4th round pick as well. So there's now 2 fourths, 3 1s, and a 3 in that package for Deshaun Watson.
Impressive.
A lot of capital there. But no, I mean, back to Jimmy Garoppolo and 49ers drama and to what's going on. It's just hard. It's hard to imagine Jimmy Garoppolo being the starting quarterback for the 49ers because of how it ended, how things went out, what the ideal thought process was with the young guy. I'm still Trey sitting a second year for me doesn't move the needle on me one way or the other for Trey, because I always felt he was a guy who needed a couple of years before we got to see the best version of him.
Oh boy. You really think 2 years sitting in today's NFL for a player that's drafted in the top 5?
I'm going to be consistent with my thought process, right? I didn't think he was a top 5 pick. I didn't think he was warranted of the top 5 pick. I thought he needed 2 years to get ready. That was my thought process. I'm not going to move off that thought process now because things are going a different direction. Like, that was always my thought process. But I was going to always be okay with Trey being the guy in 2022 because it made sense. Like you said, right? Rookie pay scale, opportunity to build a better football team around him. You know, Jimmy has his limitations and his weaknesses. If Trey has his, so be it. His upside is drastically higher than Jimmy Garoppolo's, what he could be. So if you're going to go that route, I ideally thought he needs 2 years, but you want to give him 1 year and then turn the reins over to the kid? Then let's do it. We're going to have the cap space to go sign guys, but they're not even doing that now. So I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. Is Trey, is there problems and issues? I don't know. But if Jimmy comes back in a second year, I'm not going to be happy about it because I wanted them to build a better roster. Like, I wanted them to be able to build a better roster, and you can't do that holding on to Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. But I'm also just confused. I'm confused why you did what you did. I'm confused why you moved up to where you moved up. I'm confused why everything has happened the way it's happened, because I felt like there were other ways to potentially come out with the same goal, with maybe landing Trey Lance and not moving up, or making someone else be the guy that overpays and see what happens for Trey. I don't know, Ant. I don't know.
Well, I don't think they overpaid to get Trey Lance. I never did. I was one of the ones that said I thought they were going to trade up to get a quarterback. So I never once thought that was the case. They needed to insulate the room to make sure that if Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, which he did again in 2021, that they had somebody that go out there that could keep him afloat and that could eventually take over the reins and possibly take the team to all new heights. And that's what they got in Trey Lance, a guy with remarkable ability. And the guy is crazy athletically talented and just as intelligent. I don't think in any realm that I feel that this was a reach or anything. I think it's surprising that how the narrative kind of adjusts as the 49ers don't make moves to all the way from this is, I think everyone was ready to roll with, hey, this is Trey's roster. So all of a sudden, maybe the 49ers aren't really sure about Trey. I'm just like, I don't think so.
I'm not there, but what other option are you giving me, San Francisco? Like, I'm seeing that as being floated out there, and I understand why people are going there. I'm not going there, but what else is it? Can someone speak something into existence, or someone in the front office come out and explain why we're doing what we're doing right now? Because as of right now, you're not giving people a whole lot of other options other than maybe they think Trey's not ready.
Yeah, I'm not with the whole Trey Lance isn't ready narrative. Only for the mere fact that I think we don't know if he's completely ready, but we do know that he has definitely made improvements. We saw that during the season, and I think if they thought he wasn't ready, they wouldn't even been listening to trade offers for Jimmy Garoppolo. They would have already have said Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the quarterback in 2022. That way they could have pulled the locker room together. They could have made the necessary restructures and extensions they had to do to move forward with free agency. And they would have known what the role was. Trey would have known what his expectations were. They could have told him, hey, you're coming in to compete with Jimmy Garoppolo. Whenever you have an incumbent that you feel like you have a young guy that can take the spot, you don't float that you're possibly going to trade that player, or at least that is not the consensus. So I don't think this was the plan initially. I just think that this is what's kind of being put out front as a possibility because the 49ers have yet to move Jimmy Garoppolo. So no, I don't believe that they intended for Jimmy Garoppolo to start over Trey Lance. I do not believe that they believe that Trey Lance won't be ready by week 1. I do think that is the case. So for me, it's one of those things where I'm looking at the situation as Jimmy Garoppolo being in training camp for the 49ers. I'm looking for the benefit of it. And so far, I can't find that benefit other than the fact you do have a stabilized room as far as the quarterback situation. If Trey, heaven forbid, was to get hurt, you have Jimmy Garoppolo. But at that amount of money, there's just no way you can think that is a good situation to have $27 million on the books for a backup quarterback, someone that's not going to help your team, during football games and are not going to put better pieces around Trey Lance. To me, that's the hardest part to grasp. So I just think that there's no consistency to think, with the reasons, for instance, what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan would have said, that they would have already came out and did this. And if they would have, I think people would have been upset but accepted it. But because it's been consistently talked about the trade, I think it would be hard pill to swallow now that Jimmy Garoppolo is back for 2022 as a $27 million backup.
Agreed. Ghost Cub, this is a great point here. The simple answer is, and this is the simple answer, is they want Trey to be ready, but are keeping Jimmy because they need to know their floor. That is possible. But then why come out and say anything about trading Jimmy Garoppolo and Jimmy being available? Right? I mean, you could have just been like, no. Jimmy is the quarterback in 2022, and just made him this this thing that teams would want, but no, they just, we can't get him. It doesn't make any sense for you to be shopping and calling about Jimmy Garoppolo and calling about offers in that sense, in that way. You could have just played hardball, right? Hard to get. You played hard to get with Jimmy Garoppolo and gotten to the same exact point you're in right now.
Well, you could have also just, I mean, your narrative could have been coming out of the season is, look, Trey's made a lot of improvements during the year. Trey and Jimmy are going to compete during training camp. Like if that was really, if you were worried about Trey Lance, those two are going to compete during training camp and the winner's going to get the spot. So the fact that they were shopping Jimmy means that there was a belief that Trey Lance is going to be ready week one.
Correct.
I think if not, they would have came out with a different approach to this situation. And in fact, they would have already been prepared financially. I know they said they could keep Jimmy Garoppolo's money on the books, like they're prepared to do that. But I don't think that the way that they were handling the rest of it and all the links to them as far as trade and everything was showing that. So to me, I don't think that is the case. I really do think that this is one of those things where they're not getting the compensation that they really wanted for Jimmy Garoppolo. And so now they're sitting there steadfast. And it could possibly be that circumstances of Tom Brady coming back, Matt Ryan becoming available, Deshaun Watson choosing Cleveland over one of the other teams, put the 49ers in a situation where they're not going to be able to get the value that they had put on Jimmy Garoppolo. And so now they believe that he's more valuable to their roster. The problem is that money is still there, and that money is going to end up hurting this team in the long run unless they can convince him to restructure. So I think it's something that is still to be figured out.
You're not wrong there. I saw Kasim Hodges said, "You keep saying he'll be a backup. He may still start." It's not that he may still start. I mean, that's always something that could happen. You're not wrong, Kasim. It's just, how is Trey Lance not going to develop enough with all the talent he has in the world and what we've seen from him in terms of his growth, his progress, how between now and week one is he not going to evolve to at least be as good as Jimmy Garoppolo? And if he's as good as Jimmy Garoppolo with all that growth at that point in time, you're the Niners, that's enough. That's enough to make Trey Lance the starter because he's going to continue to get better. He's not going to get worse. He's not going to grow all of this time in 2 years. And the minute you name him the starting quarterback, go, I'm bad now. That's not going to happen. You would think he's going to continue to improve and get better. So if you're the Niners, right, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but you've seen how much he's grown in the short amount of time to a point where he's as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. You're going to roll that dice and take that chance, which means you would be sitting on a $27 million backup, and that just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. And I seen, let's see, EJ Hunter says, well, then whose fault do you think it is from, our standpoint? I'm not sure if I put so much of a fault on it. I think they believed that there was going to be a certain market for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that the shoulder surgery and the timing of the shoulder surgery did play into that. But I think there was a lot of other moving factors as well. Like I mentioned, Tom Brady coming back, that removed a market for another trade for somebody else. The situations you had with Deshaun Watson getting, not cleared, but, the grand jury not moving forward with charges against him. He moves on to Cleveland. And I don't think anyone really saw Cleveland as a possibility. I think there was the outside chance. And then you had, now Atlanta and them just deciding, we're waiting. So I think circumstances have put the 49ers into a bind. I wonder if they look back and have gotten a deal or an offer from somebody that they could have moved on early. And so maybe they should have jumped on that. That I don't know, because I'm not privy to that information. I can't tell you they made a mistake. What I can tell you is that it looks like there is something they should have done and they didn't do it. And so now they're going to have to adjust, and let's see how they adjust and what they get out of this. I've always been a hindsight guy. I've always said, wait and let's see what happens, and then we'll make a decision. So I'm still in a holding pattern, but I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm trying to wrap my head around what happens now that all these pieces have been falling.
You're not wrong there. And Lou said 100%. Lynch is at fault. He's the GM. Okay. He has to take the heat. I feel like a lot of people feel that way. There's a lot of people, Lou, who feel exactly the same way you do in that regard, in that scenario. I'm someone who tends to let things lean a direction. I won't come out and be like 100% yes or no one way or the other until all the facts are presented and I know where things sit. But it's definitely leaning towards John Lynch because, as Lou just said, he is the GM. He's the one that's he's supposed to be the one that's making those final calls. But at the end of the day, too, I think a lot of circumstances like you talked about and brought up played into why you're in this boat. A lot of things happening that you thought might not happen. Although,
Right.
here's the thing. If the Niners legitimately thought Tom Brady was staying retired, that's just silly. The GOAT is not one of the greatest of all time is not retiring through an Instagram post. Not how that it's not happening. There's going to be more fanfare than that in terms of like an interview, discussions, things of that nature. No part of me ever thought that Tom Brady was officially retired. It always felt like he was going to be playing somewhere, just a matter of where and when he decided to come back. So yeah, the Deshaun Watson situation impacts it. Yeah, that's really the only one I feel that actually does that. I mean, Matt Ryan definitely does as well. It definitely plays a factor and a role in it, and Colts deciding to go that route. But if you're the Niners now, it's just what's left. You can't worry about the past. You can't worry about what has happened at this point. All that matters is what you can do and what the best decision is going forward. Because I mean, truly, do you believe the Niners thought that they would be sitting here at this point with Jimmy Garoppolo and all these other teams having made moves and them not really having a clear-cut way to trade him to a team?
No, I don't. I think they thought they were going to move him ahead. I think they're prepared to wait through March 16th. I think that's why they said they had the financial ability to work him within the contract, because I think they wanted to prove, they could wait this thing out. And I thought they thought the quarterback market would clear up. And it seemed like every single time that the quarterback market was going to clear up, another piece became available that was maybe a little bit more enticing or a little bit cheaper or a better situation, that someone that wasn't injured. And I think that it just continually came to the point where Jimmy Garoppolo was always the runner-up. I mean, it's like I said before on one of the streams, it felt like 27 dresses. He was always the bridesmaid and never the bride in the trade market. And so I think the 49ers are stuck now, and they got Jimmy Garoppolo, and right now, no real options at which to trade him. And, I know the fan base is really pushing for them to release Jimmy Garoppolo, recoup that money and use it to their advantage. But right now, I mean, I don't think they're willing to do that. I mean, they could change their mind at any point, but where's the value in that? I think we're more likely poised to wait this thing out through the draft, and possibly a Jimmy Garoppolo trade happen during the draft if a team doesn't get the quarterback they want, or ultimately they get a quarterback that they feel won't be ready and they have to bridge. So right now, I think it's another holding pattern.
It is a holding pattern, Ant. It is a holding pattern. This feels like you're sitting on a losing hand at a poker table, and the river has already hit. Right? There's nothing coming to save your hand, and you've already invested so much into it that the only option left is to either fold the hand right and see that you lost, or just bluff it all the way to the end, baby boy. That's it. And it's not a winning strategy all the time. It's really.
I love what Chuck Seeger said. He's blaming Russell Wilson for everything. He was the first domino. It's Russell Wilson's fault. I like that. Let's keep blaming Mr. Unlimited. Yeah.
Mr. Unlimited reach Ant is unlimited.
Yeah.
Wavelengths and the ripple effect from Russell Wilson has impacted the 49ers in ways we didn't think possible. Cutback crew, a couple more questions, and we'll wrap this thing up and wait to see if there's any more breaking news. I did just see Jamison Crowder, Ant, signed a 1-year deal with $4 million with the Buffalo Bills. What a small amount of money it is there. That is cheap. That's a cheap deal.
He said he wanted to win a championship, and he proved it.
There you go. He didn't pull a Chandler Jones?
Well, Chandler Jones, though, must have knew the writing was on the wall for Devontae Adams, right? And they've already freed up $12.5 million, possibly for Stephon Gilmore. So the Raiders are, I mean, they're going to be competitive. I don't know if they can actually be considered a favorite to win the AFC West, just how dominant it is over there. But at least he did go to a team that's going to be formidable.
You weren't wrong there, man. You weren't wrong there. Dude, what team would trade for him in the draft? What team? I missed the rest of it there.
No, that's a good question from Mr. Corey. I honestly don't know. I'm just trying to think of a rational time when possibly another trade would happen, because right now I don't see a market. So I'm just thinking maybe the draft would open up a market, and maybe it won't. I just think it's one of those things we're just looking at.
You're not wrong there, my guy. You're not wrong there.
And let's Lou said, and go have a beer and relax. Let me just say this. I am completely fine. I'm just having fun with the situation a little bit, because I mean, I just think that we thought, Jimmy was going to get moved. Obviously he's not going to get moved. But no, I'm completely good. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I'm just interacting with all you guys. Yeah, I'm getting into it because it's fun. But I think that, when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo, I think there's a lot of opinions, and I don't know what they're going to decide, but really when it comes down to it, I will probably support, the decision they make. I will have questions unless they have really good answers. Then it's going to, then that's when it really be the determining factor. But I mean, it's just one of those things where it's exciting. It's one of those things that's exciting, whether it's no news, good news, bad news. I just like having stuff to talk about when it comes to the 49ers.
Agree with that. Love having stuff to talk about as well. And the Niners have given us plenty to discuss at this point in time. Maybe not the conversations we wanted to have, but conversations nonetheless. And that's the good news, Cutback Crew, is we get to talk about this team. So make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. Hit that like button as well. Share the video with the rest of the faithful out there. Hit that notification bell, because if news does break, if anything else breaks throughout the week, you'll want to be right here for when we're going live to talk about that breaking news, whether it's a magical, mystical Jimmy Garoppolo trade, or the 49ers even coming out and just explaining why they've done what they've done and why they've played this hand the way they have played it, or if it's an actual person and a name and a player who could have impact on the 49ers. We'll be here to discuss it. We'll be here to talk about it with you, Cutback Crew. Goodness gracious.
And Alex, what happens if all of a sudden the 49ers do walk away with like a second and third round from somebody, and Jimmy gets moved?
Then everyone freaked out for nothing, and everyone panicked and was smacking the panic button for no reason at all whatsoever. And you know what? Then all of us have pies in our face, and John Lynch is sitting there pointing, laughing at us. All of us.
But that is the reason, right? We talk about it, but that's why I said you still have to wait and see what happens in the long run, right?
Correct.
Because I mean, we don't know. We're talking about training camp and all that and the draft, but we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they could move Jimmy Garoppolo in the next 30 minutes for all we know. We just don't know. But it's something fun to talk about as we're trying to figure out, what their mindset is. Like I said, if we knew what the inner workings and what they were talking about in that room, it would make a lot more sense.
It would make way more sense. And as of right now, nobody has it other than the guys in the room. We'll see if they decide to give any of that information out, Ant. I highly doubt it. I think you and I both know if there's one thing the Niners don't do, it's leak. And I don't see any leaks starting to spew because of this. Unfortunate for all of us. But hey, that means despite all the chaos, right? The culture is still good. Yeah. It's still solid. The foundation's still there. It's just there's an earthquake at the moment, and everyone's going, are we going to survive this? Are we going to survive this?
Yeah, when it comes out, I mean, most of the fan base knows whatever happens, we're going to support the 49ers and the decisions that they make. And hopefully, it's going to go the right way. But this definitely makes offseason exciting. If they would have already, made all their moves, we wouldn't have anything to talk about, and the fan base wouldn't have anything to tweet about. So they're keeping it exciting whether they want to or not.
Accurate. You're 1,000% accurate, man. We'll see what happens. We'll see what decisions get made going forward. Cutback Crew, thank you for the support. Thank you for liking the video. Thank you for being here. We'll catch you for more potential breaking news and everything San Francisco 49ers. And until the next one, stay safe.
Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.